Welcome to the Empire Builders Podcast. Dave Young here alongside Stephen Semple. And Stephen, you've got mail.
That's right.
You've got mail. You've got
Could
mail.
could you imagine if it still happened that way? You got
Oh
mail.
my.
You
It'd be it'd
got
be
mail.
it'd be all day long. God, I can remember in those early days when like getting an email was like, oh shit, I got an email.
Well,
Somebody
right.
somebody sent me an email and or they replied to one of mine. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh.
Yes.
So AOL, that's the
Yeah,
there was a time
America Online. Yeah.
there was a time, they'd send out their what, CD-ROMs?
Yep.
You couldn't reach into the seat back pocket of a car without finding one.
And we're going to explore that whole marketing campaign. But here's
Boxes
the
of
crazy thing.
cereal, all of it. Yeah.
At its peak, one half of CD production in the United States was dedicated to America Online
Oh my
CDs.
god.
Isn't that crazy?
Say it isn't so.
I can't. So, yeah, so AOL was founded by Steve Case, William von Meister, Jim Kimsey, and Mark Sheriff, in 1983 in Brooklyn, and as we know, it went on to become one of the biggest names in the internet, and in January 11th, 2001, it merged with Time Warner, being one of the largest corporate mergers at the time, which actually, it turned out, was kind of a disaster, but we're not gonna talk about we're not gonna talk about that. But, back in the early days in 1983, let's put it in perspective, because
Oh gosh.
sometimes,
Yeah.
it's really hard to think about these technological evolutions. But in 1983, Sony released the first consumer camcorder,
Mhm.
CD-ROMs were developed, and the first cell phone, remember the Motorola one that looked
The
like it was a
brick?
World War II,
Yeah. Well,
walkie-talkie?
before that were
Had just
bag
come out.
phones, right? I
Right.
My first one was a bag phone,
Yeah.
the cell phone that
Yeah.
you carried around with a giant battery in a bag.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's like 1983. And AOL did not start as AOL. It started as a company called Control Video Corporation, CVC, founded by Bill von Meister. And here's what they created. They created this thing called Game Link, and basically it's a modem that plugs into the Atari 2600 game module,
Okay.
and they would sell the modem for 50 bucks, and it was a $15 setup fee, and you could download games for a dollar over the phone. That was the
Alright.
idea.
Mhm.
This whole idea of the internet did not exist.
Mhm.
It was this idea. Now, Steve Case, who becomes the main character in our story, worked for Bill. And less than a year later, in 1984, CVC is struggling because the video game boom has kind of gone bust. Atari cancels the 2600 because only 3,000 units are sold. So the business is like
Uh-huh.
bit of a tough space.
This is a couple of decades almost before the boom, the bust, right?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
The bursting of the dot-com bubble.
But this is, the video game business
Mhm.
kinda goes through this little bit softening. The board, sidelines Von Meister and parachutes in Jim Kinsley, who's a former military guy, and immediately he downsizes the business from 100 people down to 10, including pretty much everybody in marketing, but he keeps Steve Case because Steve's cheap, hardworking, and driven, and they become kinda close. He mentors Case. Now the first goal is stop the creditors, keep the business alive.
Mhm.
Now the big advantage they have is they have almost no assets. So essentially what they say to creditors is, "Go ahead, but you're gonna get nothing. So you
Yeah,
might as
you
well
think
support us."
couple of office chairs.
Exactly.
Uh-huh.
Now it's 1985 and 1 in 10 Americans own computers, but it's rising, right? So it's starting to get out there. CompuServe around, but there's not much else around for online. And CVC decides to build an online service for the most popular computer of the day, which is the Commodore 64.
Okay.
Remember the Commodores? I had a
Sure.
Commodore 64.
I didn't, but like, I had an old Radio Shack one, and I think I just skipped over the Commodore at some point,
There you go. Yeah.
somehow.
So CVC changes its name to Quantum Computer Services, it's not
Oh,
AOL yet.
yeah, yeah, quantum, because
Quantum.
everything goes better with quantum.
Quantum, that's it. Now it's 1985, and they're not things aren't on the web. Online is really these competing subscription services, mainly email, chat, news, and each is separate. Like, you can't
Yeah, like,
email across platforms.
there would be bulletin boards you could dial up into, right, a BBS
Yeah,
system, and then
yeah,
you could access whatever they had, and maybe
whatever
there was a
they
way
had.
you could leave me a message in the bulletin board, and if I happen to log back into it at some point, I might get your message.
Yeah, that's basically how it works, and it's
Yeah.
slow. Like, to put in perspective, if you were gonna download a song, it takes 3 days.
Mhm.
To
Yeah.
download a single song. So they've got this service for Commodore, and it's 9.95 a month plus a usage fee, and online is still very niche, and they launched this Quantum Link, which is email and news and games, and in 1986, there's 10,000 subscribers. Not profitable, but enough to get some investors in behind it. But here's the problem, you can also not only is it only that platform, you can only use it on the Commodore 64. Like, each one of these things are designed for a specific computer in mind, and
Yeah. Well,
Commodore
that's
64
that's why I
is
didn't use it.
right, yeah. And Commodore 64 is now losing market share, so they've gotta find some other
Ugh.
computer companies, and they decide to go with Apple just because of Steve Jobs and the way he sees the world, although Apple's struggling a little bit too. The Mac's weak, the Apple II's struggling, but they still see an opportunity there. So Case moves to California for a little while to really work on lobbying Apple, and he eventually gets him as a partner. He lands Apple, and this moves Case up the chain and becomes an executive VP at the company. And then they go on to launch services for PCs. Now, when Case looks at CompuServe, what he sees is something that's faceless,
Ugh.
right? You sign on and there's that warble and all that other stuff. And he wants their service to feel friendly. So he wants a sound instead of a warble. So Case suggests a greeting that tells them when they get, something like mail. So he
Right.
hires Elwood Edwards for 200 bucks, who does the voice of "Welcome, you've got mail."
You've got mail.
Elwood
Elwood
Edwards is the
Edwards.
guy who did the voice for that, so that's kinda cool.
Yeah.
So it's October 1989, they now have 75,000 subscribers. Chat rooms are the ones that are popular, and the most popular ones are guess what subject are the most popular ones, Dave?
Well, let's see, it's internet, so porn, I'm
Well,
guessing.
not yet. Well, conversations about sex, yes,
Okay, yeah.
conversations about sex. Now, this is a concern for Quantum because they wanna be family friendly, and they're afraid
Mhm.
this could cause a scandal and all this stuff, and they're thinking about shutting those chat rooms down until they take a look at the numbers. Because remember, more time on site, more money,
Mhm.
and, that's
And
where the time is being spent on because
they're charging by the minute at this
they
point,
are.
right? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, so they decide, "You know what? We can keep these." CompuServe is the leader at this time. Now, Apple cancels the service, and Apple owns the Link name. So now they've gotta find a new name. Case
Okay.
decides to hold a contest for the new name. Takes a look at all the names that have been submitted, doesn't like any of them, decides to pick his own, which was America Online.
I think he chose wisely, probably, seems like,
Yeah,
yeah.
AOL. So it's late 91, they're about to go public, they have 155,000 subscribers, 24 million in sales. CompuServe has now risen to 900,000 users. IBM Sears, now I didn't realize Sears was a partnership in Prodigy, but IBM and Sears had partnered together to create Prodigy, and they had more than 1,000,000 subscribers.
Mm,
It's the early 90s, 15% of homes have computers, and this is an important part in innovation.
sure.
There's this whole idea of when you get to that 15% mark, you're about to explode into mainstream. And about the amount of time it takes something to go from 0 to 15, 12, 15%, it's about the same amount of time it takes for something to go from 15 to 80%. But the type of user changes. It's no longer the early adopter. It's now your mainstream consumer, but
Okay.
it's also really rapid growth at that point. Commodore is dying. Apple is struggling, PCs and IBM clones are winning, modems are getting faster, and Case believes AOL is primed for online. It's got good visuals, it's easy to use. Access to the web is still restricted to government, military, and research institutions,
Mhm.
but a lot of people still look at AOL and see online as a novelty.
Right.
March 92, AOL joins NASDAQ, Case becomes the CEO, and in 1993, Jan Brandt joins as a marketing executive.
Okay.
AOL's now struggling because growth is kind of stalled. There's no more early adopters. Again, it's
Mhm.
now moved into mainstream. Things are a little bit different. And they now have to win a less committed computer user, right? It's a different user. And the IBM Sears Prodigy partnership is now advertising on TV, but people really don't understand what going online means.
Oh, sure.
I even remember it wasn't called surfing at first. It was the information superhighway, and there'd be these
Sure.
advertisements for it. And you'd be like, what the heck are people talking about? Right?
Let me layer something else onto you in 1992.
Stay tuned. We're going to wrap up this story and tell you how to apply this lesson to your business right after this.
Hey Rick, do you ever feel like
Yeah, I do. Spinning my wheels, getting no traction.
I was going to say like we're part of a computer simulation, like the Matrix?
Oh, I guess.
Your business still isn't growing, huh?
Nope.
Working harder, spending more, going down rabbit holes, but not growing.
Exactly. Going through the motions, like Neo at the beginning.
Well, you could talk to the host.
The guy on this podcast?
Sounds like he's figured out all the secrets for growth.
I mean, these stories are interesting.
It doesn't cost anything to talk to him.
That's true. Maybe I should get plugged in.
Come on, do it. I want to hear what your ads sound like when they play at the beginning of this podcast.
When you say stuff like that, it does sound like we're in the Matrix.
Watch this. Take the blue pill, Dave.
Let's pick up our story where we left off, and trust me, you haven't missed a thing.
Let me layer something else onto you in 1992. Well, I lived like I said, it's not the edge of the earth, but you could throw stuff off the edge from there. In western Nebraska, okay? And all of these services, even to access them, you had to have your modem dial a phone number,
Right.
right? And cheapest call for me to make for my computer to dial that phone was a Denver number, which was long distance. And so, gosh, kids these days, they don't know long distance.
And long
It
distance
was
used to be
expensive.
very expensive.
So not only did you have the fees to use the service, you had to have your modem dial a long distance call just to connect to it. And those calls weren't often great, right? It just sort of depended
Right.
on what kind of line you got as to whether it was even a good phone line.
Right.
Um, so yeah, it was really weird getting online from the hinterlands basically because all those companies had to put unique phone numbers in every market they were in, right? They would have to look at Denver and say, well, we need however many thousand phone lines to answer the phones when these modems call in. Crazy.
And think about this, Dave. You're a pretty early adapter of technology and you struggle with it. So imagine, the mainstream consumer and even what does this going online even mean? People weren't sure about. So there's all of this, what we like to call a marketing friction to
Yeah.
doing things.
And it was
But
super friction at the beginning. Yeah.
yeah, and Jan didn't come from a technology background, but what she did notice is that when she started to use it, she really enjoyed the experience.
Hmm.
So what she needed to do was make it easy for people to try first, but it was hard to try. She wanted to make it easy. So she came up with this idea of mailing the discs
Hmm.
with 15 hours of free use.
Yeah, it's a beautiful idea.
All the public need to do was put the CD-ROM into a computer, it would upload everything, and they get 15 hours to try it out. But of course, management is skeptic because 'cause they're technology guys, and this sounds really old school. What do you mean you're going to mail out these CD-ROMs?
Well, it's you can mail it to somebody a lot quicker than they can log on and download it at that point.
Well, and not only that, again, people like, "What is this thing?" Like,
Hmm.
even getting them to download it's like, "Well, what is this thing?" So they wanted to do a test, mail out 200,000 discs. And as we know in direct response, direct mail type things, a 1 or 2% response rate would be pretty good. But
Uh-huh.
even looking at the long-term value of the customer, they're like, if we can keep them around for a month or 2, we got an ROI. Well, the test kills it. They get 10% response. They get 20,000 users from the 200,000 piece mailer.
That's viable. You can do that.
So Right, so they go all in on direct mail. Now, there's a little bit of a fear that the competition will copy this, which they don't. By the time the competition wakes up, like, it's too late. So on August 1994, they've gone from 75,000 subscribers to 1,000,000, and they flood the nation with these CD-ROMs. As you were
Mhm.
saying,
Oh,
you
yeah.
can find them everywhere. It ends up becoming one half of CD manufacturing is AOL discs, which
Yeah, I mean,
is
gosh,
just a s out like,
they
mind-blowing.
they were inserted in magazines, they were in cereal boxes, you everywhere you looked. Everywhere you looked.
Right, but here's the growth rate. 1994, 1,000,000 subscribers. And here's what I'm always saying to people. When you've got a marketing methodology that works, just do more of it.
Mhm.
So they go from with this one idea, 1994, 1,000,000 subscribers. 1995, 4,000,000 subscribers.
Mhm.
Now, here's the crazy thing is there's 18,000,000 Americans online. They've got 4,000,000 of
Yeah.
them in 1995. The most used services, basically become services like AOL, and AOL's the monster in it. Now, the ISPs, the internet service providers, start to enter the market in terms of giving people actually access to the web. And AOL presents itself as the gateway and now a web browser. In 1996, they hit a problem though. 1996, they're doing so many of these CD-ROMs that the marketing cost outstrips revenue. Plus, the growth pressure starts putting pressure on the servers, and they've got to do a lot of investing in that. And the model changes to this unlimited use model, and online time explodes. So they hit a bit of an issue, and they hire Bob Pittman as the new president from Time Warner because they need to basically slash costs and they need to find new revenues. And they come up with this idea, this revolutionary idea. Let's sell online ads.
Oh, yeah, that's the start of it all, wasn't it?
Right. It's funny, we think that Google was the start of it all, but no, it was
Oh, no.
AOL was the start of it all. But no one's interested. Like, they have a really hard time until a company comes along, Telesave, who offers a low-cost, long-distance calls, who wants an exclusive. They say, "I wanna be your only advertiser." And they pay AOL $100,000,000, and it's a huge success. It generates, like, literally 100,000 customers a month, which attracts other advertisers. 1-800-Flowers, pay them 25,000,000. Amazon,
Right.
who's only selling books at the time, pay them 19,000,000, and they really become kind of the hot stock. AOL Instant Messenger launches, they buy Netscape, they buy a bunch of other things. By the summer of 1999, they've got 17,000,000 subscribers. So again, if we go back, we look at 95, they are 4,000,000, right? A
Yeah.
few years later, they're 17,000,000. Like, just this explosive growth that comes from the CD-ROMs and selling
Mhm.
advertising and things along that lines. A few years later, they do the disastrous merger with Time Warner.
Gotcha.
Because really, the lesson here to me was a couple of things. And the one is, so first of all, they wanted to create that better user experience. Let's make it friendly.
Mhm.
Everybody else was happy with the warble. They were like, let's get rid of that warble.
Right.
But the other thing was this whole idea of what's the friction? And let's eliminate the friction by giving people this CD-ROM in 15 hours to try it out. Let's make it easy for somebody to try it. And look, they leaned into that for a long time. Like, they were able to get years out of just that idea. And it's funny how obvious that idea was, and yet no one copied them on it, right? This really
Right,
simple
yeah,
idea and mail it out.
mhm. I remember there's so many that, like, people were decorating their Christmas tree with AOL discs.
Now, that's the other
It's
thing
like,
they
I already
did.
have one, but, I've got a dozen of them, so
Right, but the other part is leaning into it as heavy as they leaned into it actually did prevent anybody else from doing that idea.
yeah,
Like
they
they were
just feel
doing
like, "Oh,
so
well, it's just
much of
me
them.
too."
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's no way you could go into it, but it's that whole idea of looking at it going, "Okay, we're now dealing with the mainstream consumer. It's not the geeky person.
Mhm.
What's the friction? The friction's trying it out. How do we make it easy to try out? Well, we'll just put it on this ROM. All you have to do is stick it into your computer.
Once you have 15 hours of the internet under your belt, you're not going back.
You're not gonna
You're
go
not
back."
you're
It
not
was a
giving it up.
sticky
Yeah,
experience.
absolutely.
Yeah, it was a really, really sticky experience, and then when they needed new revenue, they were able to find new revenue with the advertising, so we have them to thank, for
Mhm.
all of this for all of this online advertising. But, but they were, in their day, AOL was the monster.
Yeah.
right, absolute monster.
I looked just while we were talking, I looked my on our Wizard Academy CRM, and I just did a search for people in it that have an AOL.com email, and there's still a dozen or so.
Is that right? Is
Yeah,
that right? That's
that's
crazy,
their
isn't it?
still their primary email.
Still their primary email. That's wild. That is wild. Well, and you think of it, because then everybody else copied that.
Mhm,
When Microsoft launched their email service, it was Hotmail, and then you got
mhm.
Gmail. Like, again, all of those ideas go back to the original, AOL.
Yeah, you give them something, you give them 15 hours, and then you give them their own email address that they're not gonna walk away from that. Now people know
Right.
them at that place, so
Yeah, made it very
that's a
sticky,
cool story.
and also made it viral, because that was the thing that Microsoft figured out, is when they created
Mhm,
Hotmail, they didn't have to advertise Hotmail, because it kinda got advertised when you got an email from someone.
mhm.
Yeah, but a lot of these ideas go back to AOL. AOL was the original creator of a whole bunch of them.
Well, it's a cool story. Yeah, you could study this one for a long time, and nothing makes me feel older than sitting here at your age and my age talking about something that, like, when we were in our 20s, it would be the equivalent of somebody telling us about the things leading up to World War II.
Right, right.
Right? That long ago. Yeah, sit down, kids. Let me tell
Well,
you
that's
about
part
the
of
internet before the turn of the century.
well, and that it like, and people forget, like, I remember the early ads, and you couldn't even figure out, well, what are people talking about? What's this, like, information
Yeah,
superhighway thing? I don't
yeah.
get it. I
It
don't
never felt like a if that always felt like a lie, right? It never felt like a
Yeah,
superhighway.
right. Yeah.
It was a back road. It was a dark alley.
Yeah, but AOL, AOL led charge and made it mainstream.
Yeah, cool. Well, thank you, Steve. I don't did they have a sign off, sound? It was hello and you've got mail. Did it say goodbye?
That's a really interesting question. I don't know.
Or did you
I
just
don't
click
know.
and hang up your modem and
I think it was just click and hang up the modem and
turn
you're
turn
out
the
of there.
TV back on? Yeah,
For the 3 channels that you could
that's
get.
right. Yeah. Don't worry though, that superhighway is on its way, uh, with streaming. It took a while for that too. All right. Well, thank you
Sure
for
did.
the AOL story and a trip down memory lane.
Alright, thanks, David.
Thanks for listening to the podcast. Please share us, subscribe on your favorite podcast app, and leave us a big, fat, juicy 5-star rating and review at Apple Podcasts. And if you'd like to schedule your own 90-minute empire building session, you can do it at empirebuildingprogram.com.